Right, now when it comes to rigs, I am, without a doubt, one of the least technical people that God ever put on this planet. And this very rig that I'm using here was one of the rigs that I first learnt to tie, and it is an extremely simple but effective D-rig. Now the material that I'm using is there. It is IQ2 £20 0.47mm, and I've got a size 4 crank B, which is a hook that I've grown to love since I joined Corda back in January. I've seen people use them before in the past, and it's always a pattern of hook that's intrigued me. And let me tell you, barbed or barbless, this hook is absolutely bang on. Now, back to the rig. This rig is 16 inches in length. I put a story up on my Instagram the other day and said that I was using a 16-inch long rig. And as it would do, it gained quite a lot of traction in my inbox. So I thought it's just good now to do a little video as to why I like to use the rig so long. Now, first and foremost, the rig is long because I like plenty of movement in the hook bait. This rig can move around all over the place. The sort of resetting properties of the IQ2 means that if this rig does get picked up by a bird or gets picked up by a fish and the fish doesn't hook itself, it will always reset itself. But what I like the idea of is it will reset itself in a different area. One thing that I've noticed when I've done underwater filming before is that the fish very, very quickly suss out what's anchored to the bottom and what's in certain positions. Now, if I'm baiting up all around this hook bait, as you can imagine, when the fish are coming down and picking up all them bits of free offerings around it, none of that bait is anchored to the bottom. So what I want to do is I want to make my hook bait as light as I possibly can. So I've got a 16mm wafter, piece of plastic corn, and that will almost hover that hook just above the bottom, so there's plenty of movement. So as those fish are feeding around there, when they come to pick up the hook bait, as they pick it up, they haven't had to sort of suck any harder, so to speak, to get that hook bait to come up, because that hook bait is as light as the free offerings that are around it. And I've got a real small sort of streamlined piece of tungsten putty there, and all that is there to do is to counteract the active wafter. When all of the active coating comes off of the wafter, it will make it a little bit more buoyant until that wafter takes a bit of water on, and it just means that it isn't sitting higher off the bottom than what I want it to be. Now, another thing that you have to consider when you are using a longer hook link is the anti-tangle properties. Now, I fish this as a single. I very, very rarely hook a PVA bag onto this, and I always fish it with a lead clip. Now, if I was to use a tungsten anti-tangle sleeve here, because they are naturally softer because of the tungsten inside them, what that means is they do tend to fold up at a little bit more of an angle on the cast, therefore increasing the chance of a tangle. So this here is a standard gravel anti-tangle sleeve. They're nice and stiff, and what that means is it will kick that hook link away from any point that it can tangle around. And like I say, at this stage, because I'm fishing this naked, the only thing that it can tangle around will be either the lead or the top of the tail rubber. But I know by using a standard anti-tangle sleeve that it will keep that away from any danger, therefore meaning that this rig isn't going to tangle. And another thing that you can do to ensure it doesn't tangle is you can actually watch the separation between the hook bait and the lead on the way out there, so you know that every time you chuck this out, it isn't going to tangle. So there you go, a 16-inch long rig. It might look alien to a lot of people, and I'm not telling you that if you rush out and put 16-inch long rigs on, you're going to catch more carp, because ultimately carp fishing is about personal confidence. I've used this rig for a number of years now. It's never ever let me down. It suits the situations that I fish over, and I think that's one of the most important things to mention here, is use a rig that suits the situation that you're fishing over, and ultimately use a rig that you know why you're using that rig. And that's the question I ask to a lot of anglers. Do you know why you're using that rig? You know, are you using that rig because it's fashionable, or are you using that rig because it serves a purpose over the bottom or in the situation that you're fishing over? And like I say, I know that this rig, with the way that I fish, where I fish and how I fish, is absolutely bang on. So if you haven't used long rigs and you're looking to use long rigs and you feel that they suit the situation in which you fish in and which you fish over, then this is the presentation that I use. It's very, very simple to use. All you've got is a hook link material, a hook, a micro hook ring swivel, and your hook bait. And the beauty with tying your bait on via the micro ring swivel, it's extremely versatile, and you can use loads of different hook baits. So yeah, there you go. A very brief overview of why I like to use 16-inch long IQD rigs.